What's up, it's Marco, Sage of Soccer, and today I'm going to be talking about what I would do for the January camp for the US men's national team. This is our MLS specific camp. There are going to be some other nations involved probably, but this is generally when we get to test out our MLS players, and after the World Cup, I think we should make a ton of changes to the team and start with a clean slate heading into the 2026 cycle. In fact, I would call up none of the MLSers who were at the World Cup. Aside from their performances not being good, I think we can say that. I think that many of them just shouldn't be involved in this cycle. In fact, when I look through the entire list, I think 5 players should never be recalled to the team, those being Sean Johnson, Aaron Long, DeAndre Yedlin, Christian Roldan, and Jordan Morris. Just not good enough, not ever going to get better. We have better options. In addition, I think Walker Zimmerman and Kellen Acosta should both be out for at least a year, or at least till the next MLS-only specific camp. Zimmerman, he was all right during World Cup qualifying. I really don't think he was that good and was kind of exposed at the World Cup. He's never going to be good enough at the highest level, so we should be experimenting with different players who we know could be better at that level. Same with Kellen Acosta, just experiment, bring in some more defensive midfielders who we think can fill out a role. There are 2 players who I feel like we should keep near the team. Shaq Moore is young enough that improvement could be shown. I don't think he was good enough at the tournament, and I would have him below Joe Scally, probably Reggie Cannon. Brian Reynolds has been performing well lately, and obviously Serginho Dest. I wouldn't call him unless major improvement is shown, but I wouldn't close the door on Shaq Moore. And similarly with Jesus Ferreira, he's obviously got a ton of potential, but man, that performance in the knockout round was just awful. And I really don't think we should consider him until he moves abroad, because we've seen him at his highest level, and until he's playing his higher levels of competition, he probably won't be good enough. And in addition, I think we can add like a Paul Arriola, Yazi Zardes, Sebastian Lletget, to players who we should never see again. I'd actually keep Jackson Ewell in like the maybe next MLS camp thing, because he has shown some good improvement, but not this camp. And I should also say that there are going to be some other players who I'm not going to include, like Gabriel Slonina, Georgi Milhalovic, Paxton Aronson. They've all moved on. I'd prefer to let them settle in at their new clubs and wouldn't call them into this camp. We have the real one coming up in March. And actually, there are some other nations that aren't playing right now, a lot in Scandinavia and Asia, which we can consider calling players in from there. And I would actually, while I would be holding a U20 specific camp, and I think there will be one in January, I would actually call in a good amount of the U20 players. There's the reported case that the U20 guys were outplaying the MLS players in the MLS training camp leading up to the World Cup. And I think that some of these guys have enough potential that they will be good for the team. And also, I'm not going to be predicting random players coming in from Europe like Brian Reynolds and Taylor Booth did last year, but I assume some will come in. I'm not going to predict them, but I assume they'll be there. This is going to be a 26 to 29 man roster. I'm assuming that not everybody I want to bring in will be available, and we just not bring in replacements for them. I would actually like it to be a good bit bigger, looks at more players, but I don't think it's realistic to bring it like above 30. So I'm just going to stick with this for now. And getting things started, in goal, the first goalkeeper I want to bring in is Zion Suzuki. And I've been banging this drum for a while. If you do not know, Zion Suzuki is a goalkeeper playing in Japan right now. I think he's well regarded as the best Japanese prospect at that position. I've gotten up early to watch him in some youth Japanese qualifications, and I think that he looks like a really talented prospect. I think at goalkeeper, he'd probably only be behind Slonina in terms of our prospects. He's already playing in the first team. He's a 2002 player, and I think he'd be very good for us. He's got amazing distributions. He's a good athlete in goal. Like, he's from Arkansas is where he's born. He's raised in Japan. I'm not sure he would accept this call-up, but I think we definitely have to extend this offer, because he's a player that we can't miss out on. And Japan, they're off right now. They're not playing. Their domestic league is currently on a break. So I would bring on Zion Suzuki, just get him into the team, because honestly, I would really have liked it if we had Daniel Schmidt, their backup goalkeeper. I think that he would have helped out our team. So I think we can't afford to screw that up again. Suzuki has really good distribution. I think he's a good shot stopper and somebody we should definitely look to bring into the team. Also at goalkeeper, I'd like to have Roman Celentano. He's been playing for FC Cincinnati. He was a rookie out of Indiana this year. I think he's been one of the top rookies out of the draft, and I think he's been a really solid keeper. He's definitely someone we should give a chance to. Just a good, solid player who we could bring in, who I think can do well. I'd definitely like to give Roman Celentano some looks. And if Zion Suzuki doesn't accept, then John Poolskamp is a good option who we brought in before. Lastly, I like to have Chris Brady, the U20 goalkeeper, into this group. He probably won't play too much, but I think it's good to get him integrated into the squad. I think that he might be a really good goalkeeper for us soon. He'll probably be Chicago's starter this year, filling in for Slonina, and just such an elite shot stopper. Hopefully he gets better with his feet really soon. But I think that these three are really good guys we could have for the future. Honestly, add Poolskamp into that as well, and I think that could be a very good group. Also, if Chitaro Ndunze is available, I feel like we could consider that, but I'd stick with these three for the moment. Next, at center back, the first guy I'm bringing in is Matt Miazga. He's obviously had a storied career with the national team. He went abroad to Chelsea. It really didn't work out. He got caught up in their loan army before finally moving back to the MLS. And I'm not too high on him, but I think there is a little bit of potential. I think there's a possibility he goes back to Europe after finding his footing again, and he's probably better than Walker Zimmerman. I would like to give him a chance now. He's just somebody who's a veteran at the back who I feel like has room to grow, and someone we should be looking at. I think Matt Miazga could definitely help us out. Next, I'd bring in Miles Robinson. Even if he's not available to play, this is another one of those guys who's just like, okay, well, maybe he'll be there, maybe he won't. But I think that it's good to have him back to the team, just get him integrated into the squad again. I will say for Miles, I don't think we really missed him at the World Cup. I think he has the same issue as Zimmerman, where his on-ball ability just isn't at the level where it needs to be. And I think, like Hayes Ferrer, he is going to need to go abroad to reach the level that we need our center backs to be at the national team level. Honestly, before his injury, he was already kind of getting found out with the national team. We saw Canada get the better of him, and I feel like I'm not as high on him as a lot of other players, and we have to see if he still has his athleticism after his injury. It really took a toll on Aaron Long, and we'll have to see, but we should definitely bring Miles Robinson back into the team. Next, we've got a player from Scandinavia that I want to bring in and take a look at, Sam Rogers. And there are a decent amount of players from Scandinavia. There are actually a couple left backs, but I really couldn't justify bringing a Gayu or Kobe Hernandez Foster into this, despite me wanting to a little bit. But Sam Rogers, he has been pretty good in Norway. He was at HamCam for a while before moving up to Rosenborg, so he's doing well enough there that he's growing. He's a big set-piece threat. He actually got a hat trick recently. Decent athlete and defensive instincts. Not terrible on the ball, but it's tough to really get a gauge on how good he is at the level that he's playing. I'm not saying that he's a great player, but he is definitely someone worth taking a chance on, especially in a thing like this. Then we have just an MLS center back who, just in case like Miles Robinson can't go, Sam Rogers isn't that good, and the U20 guys aren't ready. I just want to have one other player who's available just so we don't bring the team down in case those guys aren't ready. And it could be Justin Glad, Henry Kessler, Sean Nealis, Donovan Pines. I really don't care. This isn't like last year where I made a point of saying we should be playing Austin Trusty because he actually has potential as a left-footed center back, which we didn't, and then regretted as he became really good and he had no experience with the national team. Thanks, Greg. And this isn't like this. I don't really care who we bring in. I think Justin Glad's been playing pretty well, maybe him, but I don't think it really matters. I'm not sold on any of those players. But just have somebody in just so the guys we are taking chances on, if they clearly aren't good enough in training, we can have one of them start and it doesn't bring down the team. Next, I want to bring in one U20 center back, and I think it's Brandon Craig. He looks really good for the U20 team, just a maestro on the ball. His passing is so good. Like, when you have a center back taking corner kicks, that shows how good he is. Like, really talented on the ball. His reading of the game's gotten a lot better. He's up to third string on the or backup on the Philadelphia Union's depth chart. So hopefully he'll be getting a lot of time next year. And I'm really hoping that he can break out because he could be a player that really helps the national team. We haven't really produced a center back like this in the MLS. I don't think you can really count Chris Richards, who's at FC Dallas for so little time. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Brandon Craig can do. Next, we're going to fullback, and the first one to talk about is John Tolkin, the left back who's been looking pretty good for New York Red Bull. He's been probably the breakout player in the MLS last season, showing a lot of talent. And with how little left backs we have, we definitely need to take a chance on someone like him. Like, George Bello, not really good enough right now. Sam Vines, we gave him a try, it wasn't working out. Like, he might be our only option at the moment. And I think that he did show enough that he probably deserves to get a look. Maybe he deserved to get a look earlier, but I think John Tolkin could definitely do a job for us. And he offers a good bit going forward, probably a bit more defensively. Again, he's not somebody who I think is like a superb prospect who was like a can't-miss guy, but just at the moment, we need left backs. He's somebody that we have to give a chance to. And speaking of left backs, then we have DeJuan Jones. DeJuan Jones is kind of interesting because he's a right-footed left back, and that really doesn't work for our team. Like, I know we get caught up in systems, but we do have to build around some players. And when we look at our attacking options, we have no left-footed players. Maybe Kevin Paredes will break out soon. I'm hoping he does, but at the current moment, like, there's nobody. Pulisic, right-footed. Reyna, right-footed. Weah, right-footed. Aronson, right-footed. Like, I'm pretty sure all of our strikers are. Like, Luca de la Torre is our closest thing to an attacking player who's left-footed. And we need to get width from that left-hand side. Like, we saw Portugal get really screwed over in their last game because they subbed on Cancelo at left back and Leo on the left wing. They had no width on that left-hand side. Like, this isn't a system thing. It's something that we need to have. And DeJuan Jones, like, it's not going to work out with him at left back in our team. Like, I was someone who thought he should have gotten a chance, but it was never really going to work out. So I'd be trying him out as a right back this game. There really aren't many right backs in the MLS I want to test. Like I said, I'm okay with Shaq Moore. I don't think Brooks Lennon is good enough. And he has played right back a little bit for New England. He actually got an assist when playing for them recently. And I think it's something that he can do, and it's worth taking a chance on. I don't think it's going to completely work out, but I think we have a good enough options at right back that I'm not too concerned. And I think it's something that we should try, and I think it's what DeJuan Jones needs to do if he wants to get into this team. Next, another right back I want to try. This might be my Philadelphia Union bias, but I'd bring in Nathan Harriel. He's been such a good defensive right back for us. I think he's probably been better than DeAndre Yedlin at that role this year. He doesn't offer much going forward, but defensively, he's a great player, and sometimes that's enough. Like, sometimes you need to go defensive, and I think he can do a job in that specific role. He's probably going to be a right back in the Olympic team. He honestly might transition to a center back in the future. I think he's only 5'11", but he's got like a lot of hops. Like, he can get up there for aerials, and he could develop a lot more physically. I think he's somebody who we could take a chance on. Again, like, if you want to go with like a Tavon Gray or somebody else, like, I'd understand that. This is a bit of Philadelphia Union bias, but I think we should take a look at him. Next, at left back, we're going back to the U20 team, and we're going with Caleb Wiley. And he looked really good recently in the Revelations Cup. Like, he's an amazing athlete, goes forward with a ton of pace. He's actually been played as a winger for Atlanta before, and he's done pretty well. His on-ball ability has come leaps and bounds since the last Revelations Cup. Like, there was such a huge difference. Like, he looks extremely talented on the ball. He can do well in possession and in build-up and combining with players. Like, he's probably the closest we have to somebody getting the, like, actually pushing Jedi Robinson for a spot. And he's somebody who we should definitely take a look at. I might consider starting him. And Caleb Wiley's got a ton of potential for the future. And one last player I'd take a look at, Justin Che. He is at one of our U20s abroad. I wouldn't call in any abroad U20s. But Che isn't really playing much. He's at Schalke, and he's with the U19 team. Or Hoffenheim, sorry. I think it's Hoffenheim. I don't think it really matters. He's not going to end up staying there, I don't think. But it's not looking great for him right now. I think it's kind of similar to Brian Reynolds last year, where he probably would be available to come into this camp, and I definitely bring him in. He's a really talented player. I think we still have to find what position he ends up being. I'm listing him as a right back right now. I really liked him as a center back in the one game in, I think it was the CONCACAF Olympic qualifying, and I think he's got a ton of potential for the future. We've called him into the senior team in the past, and I think he's going to be a really good player. So I'd bring him in if he's available, but he's one of those three where it's like, he probably won't be. Moving on to midfielders, and I'm going to start with more defensive-minded or box-to-box midfielders. I'd probably start this team in a 4-2-3-1, so the 2 in the 4-2-3-1. We got players who can play the 6, play a more defensive-minded midfielder, play a more defensive or box-to-box 8. Like, that's just generally how I'm classifying this. And another player who I might not call in, depending on how his situation looks, Johnny Cardoso. There are a ton of rumors that he's going to be leaving. I don't think many of them are credible right now, but if he does go to Europe, I would let him settle. But if not, he's in this team, and he's probably starting for us. Then we have a good amount of defensive midfielders who I want to try just get somebody better than Kellen Acosta in this team and in that role. First is Aidan Morris. He's somebody who was probably on track to make the national team, but he unfortunately picked up a really bad injury in the first game of the MLS in 2021, and that really derailed his run with this squad. But he's been looking a lot better for the crew recently, and he was even called up to the senior training camp, and I think alongside John Tolkin, he was one of the only U20 players. He was not listed with the full team, but not a U20 guy. But we definitely wanted to get a look at him, and I think Aidan Morris is somebody we bring in for the future. Then 3 more players. Keaton Parks, playing with NYCFC. He's somebody who I think a lot of people like, but it's something is kind of missing with him. He looks good, but not great. I don't really know how to explain it, but I think he has the potential. He's obviously a huge player in the midfield. We saw him at Benfica, where I thought he looked like a pretty good player. I do kind of like him in that defensive role. I think he's been getting a lot better physically in the MLS, and I think it's time we bring him into the national team, see what he can do. Will it work out? Who knows, but definitely worth giving a look. Then we have Erik Williamson, another guy who got really screwed over by an injury, but I think he'll be ready for the national team again now, and somebody who we should bring in. I'm honestly not as high on him as I think some other people are, but he's definitely a guy we should be giving a look to. And then lastly, again, my Philadelphia Union bias, Leon Flach. A lot more of a defensive-minded midfielder, not very good on the ball, but he is a left-footed guy, though I don't think it really means much because he doesn't attack that much. But he might move on to Europe pretty soon, so another guy who's maybe he'll be here, maybe he won't. We already brought in Andres Pereira as a bit of a replacement. So, again, might be here, might not, but I really like his defensive work, similar to Nathan Harriel, and I think he could add a little bit of something for this team. And midfield, just a position where I think we need to experiment with this defensive midfield role because we need somebody better than Kellen Acosta, and it's worth just throwing a lot of things at the wall, seeing what sticks. Next, we move on to more offensive-minded midfielders who would also play the 10. And first, we have Alan Sonora, just great creative attacking player. His brother Joel is actually in Portugal right now, so he's unavailable, but we should bring in Alan, just give him a chance, a more creative-minded, maybe more of a luxury player. We had our midfielders need to do a lot of defensive work in Berhalter's system, and hopefully he's gone by the time this camp comes up. But I think with Alan, now's the time we can really give him a chance because we're seeing France with Mbappe. You don't need everybody to be a great defender. Sometimes you can just have talent be on the field, and I think Alan's worth giving that look to because I think he'd be a really good player. Next, we got Paxton Pomykal, and I'd actually probably not be playing him in a midfield role. As I mentioned before, we are really short on attacking players who are left-footed. So I think Paxton, I'm probably going to push him up to a wing because that just helps us out a ton if we have somebody like that available. Maybe I'd put him on the left for a little bit, let DeJuan Jones play in his preferred position, but probably test him out as a inverted right winger who can cut inside. Maybe we'll be able to have him put in crosses. Like, I don't know, but just strictly because of what foot he is, he's valuable, and I'd bring him into this camp. Next, we've got a guy who I was kind of going back and forth on, but I feel like we should bring him in, and that's Cole Bassett. He's back with Colorado after just a move that didn't end up working out, and I really feel like that was at the club that signed him. Like, I don't feel like Cole really did anything wrong. Like, I think he has a better move in him soon. I'll probably either play this full season, maybe he'll get a move in the summer, depending on how well he does, but I think that Cole still has enough potential, and I'd look to bring him in. Next, on to the U20 players, and our younger guys are like so much more technical that I think we need to bring in a good amount of players at this position. And first, we have Jack Mcglynn, who I think you'd bring him in anyway. He's another guy who had a breakout season with the Philadelphia Union. Just such a creative player, like great, like the best left foot in the entire system, in my opinion. And unfortunately, he doesn't have the pace to be like a winger who we can invert, but just such a talented guy who we need to get on the field. Like, we can have a more defensive player alongside him and just allow him to go to work. I think he's talented on the ball. I think he plays a lot faster than he's given credit for. And he can pick out a ton of passes. Like, he could be somebody who can unlock defense. Like, he's kind of a special player in this team. And I know that Ireland does want to commit to him as well. And somebody who we should bring in. Next, we've got a guy who has... I'll get to him last, actually. Then Brian Gutierrez, really good season with Chicago. I've really liked him with the U20 team. I think he was in the Revelations Cup recently where he really showed out. Just looks like a really promising player. He's looking good in the final third a lot recently, and I think that he's someone we should bring in because he's got a ton of potential for us. And lastly, we got the guy who's kind of the interesting player, Diego Luna. And I was kind of going back and forth on him, but I think we should probably bring in Luna. Like, a ton of potential there. Like, he's kind of unlike any American player there is. Just a really talented 10 who can just make things happen. Like, if you watch him, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, just such a creative player, can make a lot of good drives. I think he's got a good burst of speed that's a little bit underrated. Really good with both of his feet. I think he's basically like two-footed. Like, somebody who we can really get the best out of, and I think we should give him a look right now. Like, there is a lot of good technical players who we should bring to this team. Next, we're on to wings, or players who I'd be playing out wide. There's a ton of players who can play wing, like Paxton, Pomykal, Diego Luna probably, Brian Gutierrez, and honestly, like, some of these guys could play up top. Like, positions are kind of fluid in this team. But on to the guys who would actually play as wings, and first we have Nico Gioacchini. He had a very good Gold Cup where he's probably one of our best attacking players, probably just after Matthew Hoppe, and I think he's somebody we should really give a chance to. He's at St. Louis City right now. I'm thinking they're going to be building a bit around him. Like, I think he could be a really good player. Like, we saw him in Ligue 1 in France where he didn't have the best season, but I don't think he's a real liability there. And I think he's somebody he's got a bit of untapped potential. I think he's probably the attacker who could most easily go to Europe again, and I think he's somebody we should definitely give a look to. Keep him around the team because he has looked good for us in the past. Like, I thought he looked pretty good with just the full-on senior team when he was playing striker. He might be a bit more of a wing now, but he's somebody we need to keep around this team. Next, we're on to Ben Bender. Great name and really good player. He had a breakout season for Charlotte where he looked really good as a rookie out of a Maryland university. And another guy who's left-footed. We need those left-footed options. He can play that right wing where he cuts inside. And on top of that, he just looks like a really good player. He has some good defensive work rate. He can be a bit of a goal threat. He's good on set pieces, or set-piece delivery, I should say. And just strictly on his foot alone, he should be getting a look. But honestly, just as a player, I think he should be here. He had a really good year. A good young player who could probably be in our Olympic team. And I think somebody who is really promising. Next, we have two U20 players I want to bring in. First, Cade Cowell. I mean, he'd be in anyway. He's been with the senior team a couple of times. Hasn't got a cap yet, but just very good athlete. A bit more of a straight line guy. Probably the least technical U20 we have. Because of that, I'm a little bit hesitant on him, but he's still worth taking a chance on. I think he still has potential to be a very good player. And, just sometimes you need just that wrecking ball who can come in. I've seen him being compared to Adama Traore, and Adama Traore has a role on just about any team. He's somebody we should definitely give a chance to. And our last winger, and again, positions are kind of I don't really know. I'm putting Quinn Sullivan here. He certainly doesn't play there with the Union because the Union don't have wingers, but he looks like a really big goal threat. He's with the U20 team, he's been really good. He's got a ton of energy pressing. I've liked his a technical ability, on the ball. He seems very good. Maybe not on the level of a Mcglynn, a Gutierrez, but he's above the baseline that you need. And he's somebody who has enough potential that I think I'd give him a chance to. Even if he didn't have the best season with the Union, they weren't giving their young guys, we weren't giving our young guys a lot of opportunities, but I would definitely give Quinn Sullivan a chance now. And lastly, we've got the one striker who I'm going to be bringing, Cade, Cowell, Nico, Gioacchini, they can both play up there. Quinn Sullivan as well. But Brandon Vazquez, pretty obvious pick. He had a really good season with FC Cincinnati, and despite me not really wanting him with the full national team, I think it was too late, and I kind of liked our other guys more. Now's the time to get him into the team. Just big physical presence up top. Pretty decent hold-up play. I don't think it's at the level of a lot of our other guys, like a Haji Wright or Carter Pepe or Josh Sargent. But with his scoring form, it's definitely worth taking a chance on him. I think he'd be a really good player in the future, and he's definitely somebody we should bring into the team. Again, really good movement, good physical player, good in the air. While I don't have him as high as our European options at striker, definitely a really good player for us. And yeah, that's everybody I bring into the team. If some of these players aren't available, I'd probably like to bring in a Jalen Neal and Daniel Edelman. I didn't think I could really include them, but if the team ends up being a good bit smaller, let's say Miles Robinson definitely can't go, Justin Shea can't be brought in, Johnny Cardoso's moving, another one of our players ends up getting a move, I'd bring those two in instead of anybody else. I think we have enough attacking options, and it's good to get them in. Now onto the lineup that I'd go with for this team. I think in goal I'd start Zion Suzuki. I mentioned him before. He's somebody who I think we should really try to get into the national team because he has a ton of potential for the future, and I think he could be really good. Then at center back, one of them who's going to be starting is Matt Miazga. Want to get a look at him, want to get him back to the national team setup because I think he can help us. And the other center back, we'll see. If Miles Robinson can go, it's Miles Robinson. If Sam Rogers looks good, it's Sam Rogers. If Brandon Craig is really looking good in camp, it's Brandon Craig. If none of them look like they're up to it, then it can be the MLS guy we brought in. We'll have to end up seeing who it is. Then at left back, John Tolkin. At right back, like I mentioned before, I'm going to be trying out DeJuan Jones there. Again, probably not going to work out, but I think Jones has shown that he deserves a chance with the national team. And I think at right back is probably his only opportunity, and he hasn't looked terrible for New England there. Then moving on to it's a 4-2-3-1. The defensive-minded midfielders are going to be, if Johnny Cardoso is available, Johnny Cardoso will be playing. If not, I'd replace him with probably Erik Williamson, and then Aidan Morris as well is going to be a starter. Then moving forward, I'd have Alan Sonora as a 10, Nico Gioacchini on the left wing, Ben Bender on the right wing, and Brandon Vazquez up top. For some subs I'd like to see, Roman Celentano, I'd probably give him a good bit of time. I definitely want to see Brandon Craig and Caleb Wiley playing a lot. Sub on whichever center back's available, whoever's not starting. I would like to see Nathan Harriel as a more defensive-minded winger. That could be pretty fun. Definitely like to see Keaton Parks get into the team, Jack Mcglynn as well. Maybe you switch to a 4-2-3-1 at that point, or a 4-3-3 at that point, and get somebody in a more defensive role, have Mcglynn in a more free role in a deeper position. And then forward, definitely want to give Brian Gutierrez a chance, Pomykal on that right wing, maybe on that left wing a little bit, and try DeJuan Jones as a left back for a couple of minutes, and maybe Cade Cowell up top. I feel like I'd probably try to get Diego Luna a little bit of time as well, to see how he can do it as a 10 in a real game. And I think there's a lot of fun we could have with this camp. Again, it's like the MLS camp. They call it Camp Cupcake for a reason. We're not going to get too many great players, but I feel like we should be giving people a chance because last year, we really should have played Austin Trusty more. And maybe if we did, we could have called him into this World Cup instead of, like, relying on Aaron Long as a backup. And I think there's a lot of players we should give a look to. Maybe Sam Rogers could be a really good player. I actually really like the potential of Zion Suzuki. I should mention that we'd be having a U20 camp at the same time. Bring in Ernie Chase into that U20 camp, another Japanese dual national. Be good to see Matt Miazga into the team. I'm really high on a lot of our U20 guys. Brandon Craig, Caleb Wiley in defense. John Tolkin looks like a really good prospect. We get to see DeJuan Jones. Keaton Parks is somebody I'd like to get a look at. I don't get to see him in the MLS as much as I'd kind of like to. I haven't seen many NYCFC games, but he's somebody I like the talent of. Aidan Morris could be pretty good. Johnny Cardoso is somebody we're all high on. Alan Sonora could be worth giving a look to. We have to see where Paxton Pomykal ends up going. Jack Mcglynn, Diego Luna, Brian Gutierrez, I like all of them. Nico Gioacchini, Ben Bender, they all look really good. Cade, Cowell, Quinn, Sullivan, Brandon Vazquez. There's a lot of fun players in this team I want to give a look to. But, it's only going to be so high of a level, but I think there's a lot of talent in this team, and it's definitely worth watching them play, because I think there's going to be a lot of fun players in this team. And yeah, that's all I've talked about. This is my team that I'd go with. There's probably only going to be 10 of them in the actual squad, but yeah, that's all I've talked about. See you.